You are listening to Passing Shots with Pete Zebron on the Pro 10 Radio Network, a production of Pro 10 Global Sports. Enjoy the show.
And good evening and welcome to Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. This is Pete Zebron of Tennis Acumen, joined this evening by Stephanie Neppel of I Have a Tennis Addiction, and we have a very special guest tonight, three-time All-American at the University of Southern California, who is in action this week at the surprise $25,000 Challenger Tournament in Surprise, Arizona, Maria Sanchez. Good evening, Stephanie. Good evening, Maria. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Absolutely. And Maria, really nice to have you on today on the 19th of February, a Thursday, and got some questions for you with respect to your collegiate career and a little bit about your professional career as well. And I'm going to have Steph lead us off tonight.
Well, Maria, obviously you were a three-time All-American at USC, and you've been out for a few years. But what do you miss most about your college tennis days compared to what life is like for you now on the tour?
I miss the team aspect of it. My coaches were great, and I loved my teammates. You really form, a special bond with those people that you play with every day. You practice with them. And then you go to the matches and you have them right by your side supporting you. So I think that's the biggest thing I miss. Now on tour, it's all you. And luckily I have a coach here with me. But, you just don't have that team camaraderie you had in college.
And I know that your former teammates are now your opponents, so that's got to be a bit fun for you as well.
Yeah.
So college tennis is, and I've followed pro tennis for many, many years, but college tennis seems to be getting a lot more attention in recent years. And I actually used to work for the ITA and did a lot of research into, how well male and females were doing on the tour. And I just thought, we've had someone like Nicole Gibbs is having a good run right now, Mallory Burdett, who obviously used to be some of your tough opponents from Stanford days. But, Burdett has retired. But do you have any thoughts on why we really haven't seen like a big kind of Isner breakthrough on the women's side? Have you had any insight into that at all?
That's a tough question. I think, there's a lot of great players in college, and, a lot of them have come out now and starting to play on tour, and they're kind of in their beginning of their career on tour. So, I think you could. I think it's definitely possible to see more and more women going to college and then having success on the tour after college.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of people that choose the college route and others that go through other USTA or other types of coaching. But, it was just an interesting, project I kind of had was really looking at how well, and obviously there's players like you and Gibbs and Burdett who had been out for a few years, and, it's fun to track your successes as well. It's especially, for you played 4 years, I believe, at USC, and some people leave after a couple years, but, it's just a really interesting kind of trend right now. There's a lot more attention on college players, so which is great. It's good exposure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great route, and I think more men have actually gone to college first and gone pro after than women. But I think, more and more women are really starting to explore that option.
Very good. And Maria, I was wondering, with respect, you've been on the pro tour for a few years now, but do you still follow and watch collegiate tennis at all?
Yeah, I usually try to make it out to one or two dual matches during the year. It's tough always being on the road now, but I keep in touch with my college coaches, Richard and Wes. I talk to them, every week or two, and they just kind of fill me in on how the team's doing, and so I definitely feel still close to the college tennis scene, but unfortunately I'm just not able to go to as many matches as I would like to.
Sure, and you mentioned the team concept of playing at the University of Southern California as opposed to now you're more on your own. Certainly, you've got your coaches and whatnot. But what has really surprised you most about life on the pro tour?
I think really almost like the lack of balance that you have on tour. I mean, my whole life I've always played other sports growing up, and then in college I had school and tennis and, the whole social scene, and now on tour it's, all tennis, for a good reason too. And, I enjoy it, but it was definitely an adjustment, kind of turning all of my focus to the tennis court and without going overboard with it. But I think that's been the biggest surprise.
So Maria, you said you obviously don't have as much time as you would like to go watch your former team play, but do you actually watch a lot of tennis? Like when you're on site at tournaments or on TV, do you watch a lot of tennis?
Yeah, I watch the Grand Slams on TV. The Australian Open, I was watching every night what was going on over there, and it's fun, and it's good for me to see what the top players are doing. I think it's a good thing to be able to watch the tennis on TV.
Do you do it because you love it, or to kind of study other players, or is it sort of a combination of both?
Yeah, both. I mean, I enjoy watching the matches. It's entertaining. But then I also want to see what the top players are doing, how they're competing, and how they're playing.
Who are your favorites on tour right now that you enjoy watching?
I love Federer. I love Djokovic. Those guys are great for the sport and just a lot of fun to watch. On the women's side, I love watching the Williams sisters, especially Serena being the best. And I used to like watching Kim Clijsters a lot, but then she retired.
Yeah, except for when she has to go play during exhibition matches when she had her Carlos Suarez Navarro had pulled out in the final the other day at the tournament that Kim's working at. I don't know if you caught up with that, but she's a tournament director, and the final was a walkover, so Kim actually hopped in and played Andrea Petkovic, which is quite nice if your tournament director is a former pro who can still hold her own on the court. So, yeah, she's definitely a fan favorite. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Maria, I know you've won so far.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Pete, you're fading in
sure.
a little bit.
Okay. You want to take the question, Steph? Go for it, please.
Oh, no, it's a lot better now. You're good.
Okay, sorry about that. Sure, Maria, I know you've won a couple of ITF titles, but was wondering what you consider to be your best result on tour. Would it be those tournament wins or perhaps a signature win at another event somewhere?
I think those were, a couple of my biggest successes on tour. And then when I won the Auckland WTA in doubles, that was big for just me as a professional and my all-around game. I love playing on grass. I had a pretty good tournament at Birmingham 2 years ago. And so I think I actually got my biggest win there, beating a girl ranked in like the 60s or something. But, I think those two tournaments, anytime you win a tournament, it feels great, and it's a big step for your career.
So, Maria, we're obviously just at the beginning of the season. What sort of goals have you set for yourself for this year?
Right now, I'm just trying to get in a lot of matches and, fight through the hard times and know that it's going to get better, and you just keep working on your game and developing your game and getting in as many matches as you can, and putting myself in a position to be playing more matches and getting further and further in tournaments. And so, I mean, I always set little goals for me, but I don't really like to set, big, yearly goals or anything like that.
You're on the road quite a bit, and sometimes the ITF events you get to visit some interesting off the path places. You play the majors as well, the qualification rounds, and hopefully getting into the main draw. But really, wondering what the most interesting place on tour that you've visited to date, and why that is, please.
Well, I love the U.S. Open, just the atmosphere there, all the people. There's so much energy. So, I mean, I love that. I love the Acapulco WTA in Mexico. That's actually getting ready to start next week. That one's beautiful. The tennis courts and the hotel are all in the same resort, so you just walk everywhere, and to get from your hotel to the courts, it's you're basically walking along the water. So that's really nice and kind of a treat to get to go play at that one. But I've been surprised by some of the ITFs that have been held in pretty cool places. Captiva Island is a fun one. You're also there kind of walking from the hotel to the courts, and the water's there. Albuquerque's a really pretty city, too. So it's nice. It's definitely a perk to being a professional tennis player, getting to travel and see new places.
Sure, thanks. And obviously you won a couple of matches today, Maria, a singles match and a doubles match. You're in the quarterfinals for singles. I was wondering, Jim Courier, I would go to his event here in Surprise every year. He'd have the Legends Tour. You have Pete Sampras out here, Michael Chang, actually Martina Navratilova and Anna Kournikova and Tracy Austin have been here the last few years. And one of the things Jim Courier always said when he was playing here in Surprise was, the altitude. Well, we're not that high up. We're probably at about 12 or 1,300 elevation here. But I was wondering if playing here in Surprise is any different for you and your game, and if you could talk a little bit about the conditions here this week in Surprise, maybe how that differs from the rest of the tour, if at all.
Yeah, actually, my coach and I were just talking about that. I mean, there's not really altitude here, but you kind of feel like you're playing in altitude because the ball kind of flies on you a little bit, and I think it's because maybe the air's a little thinner and drier, and makes it a little bit harder to breathe, too. So I think just because the ball flies a little bit more, but that's usually the case when you play in the desert. It kind of feels like altitude, but even though it's not really. I've just had to make adjustments with that and, just try and put a little more spin on the ball, bring the court in and my targets in a little bit more. The weather's been really nice here. You can't really ask for better playing weather. Not having any rain or humidity to worry about, and it's just been, sunny and 80 every day. So, it is a nice place to have a tournament.
Well, obviously the weather's agreeing with you. You had a couple of wins today, and unfortunately your former teammate Danielle Lau won't be joining you tomorrow. You guys would have played, but you do play Wariski, so maybe she can give you some pointers about that. Yeah,
I'll probably text Danielle and see how her match went. It's too bad. It's always nice to see Trojans going further in tournaments.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, Maria, I wanted to do you have anything else you'd like to share with us with respect to your professional tennis career, something that we might not know about you, or again, I know Steph mentioned it earlier, but what would be a really big accomplishment for you here in 2015? And obviously, we wish you all the best and certainly to stay healthy.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think my next goal is to reach top 100, and from there, you're basically guaranteed main draw entry to all the Grand Slams, and once that happens, anything can happen. Really, you see a lot of big results for players at Grand Slams, and so I mean that's my next goal. And right now, I just have to take it match by match, and hopefully see my ranking continue to go up and get to play in the bigger tournaments.
We'll wish you a lot of luck.
Sure.
We'll be following along tomorrow with all the action and surprise again. It's nice to have all the live scoring and following along with you guys.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
Sure, Maria, and I will be in attendance tomorrow in Surprise. I live a little more than an hour away, but I was planning on going to one of the days, and certainly, again, the quarterfinals, again, like you mentioned, we're 80, 82 degrees and just perfect weather here, so I'm going to be able to attend the quarterfinals tomorrow in Surprise, and certainly look forward to watching you in action tomorrow.
Oh, great. I'll see you tomorrow then.
Absolutely, Maria, and thank you so much, Maria Sanchez, for joining Stephanie and I on Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. We're going to pause for a break, and when we come back, Stephanie and I are going to talk about all the action in Dubai, as well as a couple of tournaments last week in Antwerp and Paris City, and we'll come back on Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network right after this.
Hey, Thirst, can I try out a few Coke Summer sound effects on you? Cool. You okay with this? And this? And what about this? Gotcha there, Thirst. That wasn't sound effects. That was a Coke. I'm no longer thirsty. You're so out of here. Coca-Cola. Open happiness.
Little Caesars, home of the $5 hot and ready pepperoni pizza, now has a deep, deep dish pizza with 8 crispy caramelized corner slices and even more cheese and pepperoni. So head on down and grab a large for just $8 and tell them Alan Varner sent you. They won't know who that is, but as a voice actor, I'm always trying to get my name out there. Check me out at alandoesvoices.com. That's ALAN doesvoices.com. But first, get the new deep, deep dish pizza. It's hot and ready every day from 4 to 8 p.m. for just $8, only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
At participating locations plus tax.
Hi, this is Dick Gould. You're listening to the Pro 10 Radio Network.
And welcome back to Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. Pete Zebron of Tennis Acumen and Stephanie Neppel of I Have a Tennis Addiction. And Steph, that was really cool to be able to talk to professional player Maria Sanchez in action here in Surprise, Arizona, winner of both a singles match and a doubles match here today. When we came on the air, I shared with Maria, I saw her get to the finals of the now defunct Goldwater 75,000 Challenger in Phoenix in November of 2012. On her way to the final, she beat none other than Jeannie Bouchard and Camila Giorgi before losing in that final to Madison Keys. So Maria Sanchez can play some solid tennis. As I mentioned, I look forward to seeing her in action tomorrow in Surprise. But halfway across the globe, we've got a dynamite women's tournament going on in Dubai, and Steph, despite the fact that Serena Williams and Maria Sharapova, the two top players in the world, are not in this draw, the matchups in Dubai have just been spectacular, day in and day out. We'll talk about some specific matchups, but your thoughts and overview of what we've seen so far to date in Dubai.
You know, every night I've had the question with myself of whether I should set my alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning, because it really is a slam caliber draw. I mean, yes, Serena did pull out with the cold that she's been struggling with, and Maria chose to skip Dubai this year, but otherwise the rest of the top 10 is there. I'm not sure how many of the top 20, but the matchups have been incredible. Every day's just been scintillating, and I think the match quality has been really intriguing. There's been some messy 3-set wins, but there's just been a lot of drama and just really compelling tennis, which is about all you can ask sometimes. And I was watching today. We had woke up to a couple upsets yesterday. Today were some wonderful matches, including Simona Halep, who is the top seed in the absence of Serena pulling out, and she played Ekaterina Makarova. Now they just played the quarterfinal in Australia in January, and it was a really easy win for Makarova. Today was just nothing easy for either player. It was a very compelling 7-5 in the third set match. 3 of the 4 quarterfinals today went 3 sets, and they went deep in the third. So, it's really exciting. I really can't wait for the semifinals tomorrow, but it's definitely been a huge event in terms of excitement and just top players really playing great tennis.
Completely agree, and mentioned number 1 and number 2 are not here. The top seed is the number 3 player in the world. They're actually number 4 now, Simona Halep, who was 3 when the draw was made. But she's the number 1 seed at the third rank. The 16th seed was Peng Shuai at number 21, and you mentioned a Grand Slam, a major caliber, even probably more so because with a draw of 64. You've got just heavy-hitting action right out of the gate, which is what we've seen every order of play. You look up and down, there's 4 concurrent matches going on, and even, the doubles matchups were blockbusters as well, and there just wasn't enough time to see everything, and you're right, I didn't know what time. Should I stay up late? Should I get up early? Where can I sneak in a couple hours of sleep where I can see what I want? And I kind of waved a surrender hanky at one point saying, I'll do my best here, but obviously I won't be able to see it all. And, you mentioned the semifinals. Every day on Twitter I put out the intriguing matches of the day for the following day, the men's matches and the women's matches. And, Steph, this is how interesting it is right now, where I put 17-seeded Caroline Pliskova against Garbine Muguruza as a more intriguing match, a 17 seed versus a non-seed, over the number 1 seed Simona Halep against the 3rd seed Caroline Wozniacki. Pliskova and Muguruza are they seem to be the stories of 2015 right now, and for them to be able to be matching up in the semifinal in Dubai, that's all we can ask for.
I agree. Pliskova is definitely going to be in the top 20. Muguruza is on the verge of cracking the top 20. Talk about 2 up-and-coming, exciting players. Both of them have been on the radar for, more Muguruza than Pliskova. But Pliskova, she knocked out Ivanovic at the U.S. Open last year. She has a twin sister. For a while, it was a lot of confusion of who was who because, they weren't really standing out individually in singles. But, Carolina has just had fantastic results the last 6 months. I did pick her, of course, to make the final in Antwerp last week, and I was wrong in that match. But I really think that match against Garbine is going to be fantastic tomorrow. Really excited for that. Pliskova has a huge serve. She's, second to Serena in basically all the serving stats. She's an incredible, just incredible shot maker. Muguruza has been having a fantastic year as well. They both had 3-set wins today. And, of course, Muguruza had to beat her doubles partner, Carla Suarez Navarro, and then they teamed up to hold on to a 2-set win over the Radionova sisters in doubles, which I did catch a little bit of that. And like you said, that even the doubles matchups have been great this week as well in Dubai. So I'm going to pick Muguruza to get through the final. Who are you going to choose?
I am as well. I was on Dave Gertler's Australian show earlier in the year, and I had Garbine is really the top female to watch this year. And, one of the early tournaments in Australia, he said, so you're picking her to win the final? I said, no, not quite yet, not out of the gate, but I really think she's going to have a fantastic year. I liked what she did last year. Obviously, I was really thoroughly impressed with how well she's competed against Serena Williams a few times now. And I would take that. I'm going to take Garbine as well to win that semifinal over Pliskova, taking nothing away from Pliskova. It's a shame that one of these ladies has to lose, but I think Garbine is going to get the job done. And on top, I think Simona Halep has figured things out. She was hiccuping for a while there, and I saw a few things that she said today. I fought the whole way through the match today. I didn't do that in Australia, and I think a lot of us were wondering, why not? What happened? But Simona Halep, I think, has found her way back. Who do you like top half of the draw there, Steph?
That's a really tough one. They've only played twice. They played here 2 years ago when, I think the year that Wozniacki won this event, and they played again in New Haven in 2013. So, they didn't play last year. So they really haven't played, I think, when they were both really kind of top players, because in 2013 it was Wozniacki sliding and Halep was kind of making a name for it, and she did beat her in New Haven. And the Wozniacki, people jokingly called it the Wozniacki Open because she had won it. I think she won it 4 straight years or something like that. I think it's really intriguing now that they are both top 5 players. Wozniacki's been sick. She didn't look happy. Anytime she was on the she looked a little bit exasperated today. Anytime she missed easy shots, she just kept looking at her father like, why did you do that? Which was kind of amusing, but she definitely did take some medicine. She was blowing her nose. She didn't sound great. So it'll be interesting to see. I know her BFF Serena, was able to show how you can win when you're sick when she won the Australian Open this year, but I feel like Wozniacki probably to beat Halep probably needs to be feeling a little bit better than she is. But you're right, Halep showed great fight today, and I did tweet, yes, I appreciate the fight today, but where was this in the Australian Open? And I had a couple people that tweeted me back, and they said, well, where was Makarova during the Sharapova match, which, okay, I it's a good point, but I kind of expected it more out of Halep. Makarova's been around for years. She's not made, she's made a couple slam semifinals, but she's a little bit of a streaky player. She's not that consistent. So for me, I wasn't as surprised to see Makarova not do great against Sharapova in the Australian Open semifinals, and I did expect more out of Halep. I do think that there's a bigger upside to her. But it was a fantastic match today. It was really exciting. Both players fighting. The crowd was loving it. There's a lot of Romanian fans in the crowd, and I think that really, I think Halep kind of needs that. She definitely, it's a new feeling when you're the hunted, and a lot of top players acknowledge that. I'm gonna say that I think Woz is gonna clip her though, but I could be completely wrong. But I hope to see Wozniacki playing well. I think today in the match against Panetta, it was kind of a sloppy first set, and then Wozniacki kind of ran away with it. But it should be a great matchup. I'm really looking forward to that one, and very happy it's the second match on, so I don't have to set my alarm for crazy o'clock in the morning. So, so you're looking at. So you believe we're going to have a Muguruza Halep final? Who do you like in that matchup then?
I think Simona Halep has righted the ship, and Garbine is. I think, realistically, again, we talked about so many big names and so many blockbuster matchups. I think that Halep was going to have more gas in the tank here at this point. I think that Garbine, will play well again tomorrow, but with respect to the final, I'm going to go with Simona Halep and do what some people thought probably should have been done in Australia, even win that title. I did not pick her to win the title. I picked Serena Williams, but was very surprised at her loss there. I think she has figured some things out here this week in Dubai, and I'm going to pick her to win her next 2 matches to win the title in Dubai. Simona Halep, 2015 Dubai champ.
Well, she won Doha last year. She obviously, likes the conditions down in the Middle East. So, I wouldn't be surprised if she sweeps both tournaments, to be honest. I do agree with you. I think that this is actually, I saw, I believe, a tweet that this is the first top 45 win that Simona has had this year. She's lost to the other opponents that she's faced. So maybe getting over that hump and having a really tough win, especially coming off a hard loss to Makarova, definitely could kind of help, Simona's psyche a bit and help her really dig deep. Because I think that people are expecting that of her, and I think that's when when you become a top 3 player, you make slam finals, you win a lot, people definitely expect a lot, and they also expect you to have a champion's mentality. And I think that's where Halep got a lot of stick after some of the comments that we've talked about that she made in Singapore, that she made after that quarterfinal loss in Australia. And I like the fact that she talked today about the fact that she didn't fight all the way in that match in Melbourne. She knows that, and she expects more of herself. And so I think that anytime she starts to kind of be a bit more self-aware of really every part of her game and her mental game as well on the court, I think that's going to help her become a really solid top player, because I'm sure it is hard now that she's winning. Everyone wants to beat her, but she wants to prove herself as well, and that's why it's hard to call a match with Wozniacki, because Wozniacki fell hard out of the top 10. I think she was even on the verge of being out of the top 20 after being number 1 for so long. So, she's still kind of clawing her way back, and I know she'll fight hard in that match as well, so I'm really excited about it. It should be great.
Completely agree. A wonderful, just the outstanding days of women's tennis this week in Dubai are just off the charts with respect to what we're seeing, and with the exception of a few sloppy sets or matches here or there, but the big names are bringing it, and nice to see the semifinal lineup that we have that we're going to look forward to watching tomorrow. Steph, we wouldn't do this tournament justice if we didn't backtrack a little bit and talk about some of the matchups that happened earlier in the week. I've got a couple that I want to discuss with you, and then I know you've got a few as well. But going back to a second-round match, and Venus Williams had a first-round bye, but she played Belinda Bencic in the second round, the young Swiss, who had a nice win over Corinne Knapp in the first round. But then what really surprised me here, and again, all credit, Venus Williams is having a fantastic 2015, and again has done very well at this tournament here in Dubai for the last few appearances, for that matter. But the thing that jumped out at me was the scoreline. Venus Williams over Belinda Bencic, 6-1, 6-2, a second round demolishing of the young Swiss. Was this as lopsided as it was, or was Venus playing that well in that match, or was Bencic just completely overwhelmed by the situation?
I was out of town Monday, and so I was following the scoreboard, and then I was try to watch a little bit on the Tennis TV app on my phone, but Twitter was just drooling at Venus's play. And so when I got home, I sat and I watched the whole match. I would say that 80% of the scoreline had everything to do with how well Venus was hitting the ball. She was hitting just immensely with just the depth and the placement and the power that we've grown to kind of accept as normal from Venus. But she has thrown in a lot of errors in the last years as well, and it was just such a clean match from her. It was unbelievable, and Bencic just couldn't really do a lot. And there were a lot more rallies in the second set compared to the first, but Bencic actually did double fault down break point, I believe, 3 times. So that's certainly something she's going to need to dig deep with, because, on a pressure point like that, when you're trying to hold serve against someone that can return so well like Venus, clearly that was, part of the issue. But there were some wonderful rallies in the match, but my takeaway was more about how amazing Venus looked than Bencic being off, because I really don't think Belinda played that bad. I just think there was very little that she could do against Venus, and it was over an hour. I think it was about 70 minutes, so it certainly wasn't a 45-minute dusting or anything like that, but it was an incredible match, and I think that almost makes it a little bit more disappointing that Venus didn't follow that up with as good of a match against Lucy Savasheva. But from all reports, because I didn't watch it, Savasheva played the match where it completely was on her racket. She couldn't miss. So, it was a shame that Venus really couldn't keep her Dubai run going, but she'd won 16 straight matches in Dubai. She's won the title 3 times.
Right.
What it does mean is that her ranking's going to slide down a bit. She was on the verge of the top 10, and because players like Muguruza and Pliskova are having such a good run, Venus could potentially be down around 17, 18, when it's all said and done, because she didn't defend her title here. But, hopefully it's just a little bit of a blip for her. I do think that we've seen a lot more consistency in Venus to start this season. So I'm going to say, it's a shame that she couldn't keep that up. But Lucy, again, is, she's always a dangerous opponent. It took Pliskova 3 tough sets to get past her in their match that they played today. It's hard to keep track, but Pliskova won that 6-4 in the third against Shabashova. So that was, Lucy certainly didn't cave in her next match after beating Venus, because I don't believe she's beaten Venus too many times. So that was a pretty big win for Lucy.
Yeah, and I wanted to credit Lucy Shabashova for a wonderful tournament. Her results this week took out Monica Puig, took out Casey Delacroix, took out Venus Williams, and again, her countrywoman Pliskova took the first set from Pliskova and very nearly, and lost the second set in a tiebreaker, so very nearly would have matched up with Muguruza. So a wonderful week for her. Nice to see her playing some good tennis. And sticking with the Czechs for a second, Steph, I wanted another result that surprised me for a couple of reasons here was a third round matchup. Carla Suarez-Navarro took out Petra Kvitova, and Suarez-Navarro had a bye in the first round, as did Kvitova, but a nice win for Suarez-Navarro over Camila Giorgi to get to the Kvitova matchup in the third round. And I guess a couple things here. Obviously, we know what Petra can do on grass. 2-time Wimbledon champion, solid. Off of grass, somewhat disappointing. I'm really surprised that we don't see more consistency from her. But Suarez-Navarro, someone who did not play the final, advanced to the final in Antwerp, and was not able to play the final against Andrea Petkovic, getting Petkovic the win there. How does somebody turn around this quickly from a neck injury, take out a big swinger in Giorgi, and then taking out Kvitova? That's the match I want to talk about. And then she actually lost to Muguruza in that quarter. But Petra Kvitova, I want to ask you about why is it that we're not seeing bigger and better results from her outside of Wimbledon?
She's such a dangerous player. And, obviously she's won Wimbledon twice, but indoors she really had a great streak going there, and she's still a player you don't want to play indoors on a hard court too often. But, in Melbourne this year, and she won Brisbane? No. I'm forgetting where Kvitova played before the Australian Open, just blanking all of a sudden. But, all the reports in Australia was that she was as fit as people had seen her. She hired, I believe, Lena's personal trainer, and they're very good friends. And you could tell she definitely looked fitter. I mean, she has every weapon out there, but she just can't find the consistency. And I did watch the match she played against Svitolina. Obviously, Svitolina is a dangerous player. She took, Serena to 3 sets in Melbourne. She's always been a player that, she's still young, got all the strokes, and Petra did come back from losing the first set and then played Suarez-Navarro. And she's just all over the show. She just cannot, I don't know if she goes for the lines too much. She doesn't give herself enough of margin for error. And so because she just hits so flat, she misses wildly so often, and she can be so frustrating because she's such an amazing player. She's a tricky lefty. I mean, she could easily be number one in the world. And so sometimes I just get frustrated watching her because she's so erratic. But then, in 5 seconds she'll turn it around, and all of a sudden she's the most amazing player you've ever seen. We've seen that. I mean, I was in Singapore, and, she was playing Sharapova, and just all of a sudden she couldn't miss. And, but Suarez-Navarro, she did lose the first round of the Australian Open. Like you said, she made the final in Antwerp, was able to, get over that neck injury quickly and take her out. I didn't see any of that match, but it's just a consistency problem. I really don't know if it's ever going to be anything but that. Do you think that this is just going to be what her career is, where she kind of has flashes of brilliance and then can lose to anybody? Because it's kind of, she's just been on a roller coaster the last few years. Do you think we're going to get more of the same this year from Petra?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I looked it up very quickly. She won Sydney. She beat Pliskova in 2 tiebreakers, winning those 5 and 6 to win the Sydney title. So that's where she was before the Australian Open. So good result for her there. But Getting back to your question, sure. I like what I've heard. A couple of things, like you mentioned. People are saying this is the fittest we've seen her in a while. She's got good people in her camp at this point in time. I just go back to, having been in press conferences with her in Cincinnati, where it can be hot and humid, and her breathing issues, her breathing problems, if you will, that she tends to wilt a little bit in the heat. It almost reminded me a little bit of what Djokovic used to go through. But I think we're going to see bigger and better from Petra. Obviously, always one of the favorites at Wimbledon. She's proven that a couple of times. But I think she's going to steady the course here with respect to getting the right people with her, whether it's a diet change or something change with respect to being able to compete not only in the heat but on the hard courts. I think we're going to see Petra Kvitova. I even think she's going to win a hard court major or two, possibly at least one. I like to see some things at the back end of 2015, but I think I think she's going to be the player that we've all been waiting for her to become outside of the lawns of England, if you will.
I hope so. I mean,
the
Serena Sharapova, call it an rivalry. It's always going to be compelling, but to have that crazy head-to-head between the number one and number two is just never a great narrative. But Petra is someone that can challenge Serena. I mean, it was interesting. It's been 2 years since Serena took the number one spot back, and she did it by beating Kvitova. I believe it was in the quarters of Doha 2 years ago. Kvitova, I believe that was probably their closest match. I mean, I think it was 7-5 in the third set. Serena won that, and those two just do not play enough. We've seen plenty of Venus-Kvitova matches, which I believe they're heartbreaking to me, someone who loves Venus, and, she always seems to kind of play so amazing against Petra and not quite, beat her. But Serena-Petra matches, we just need to see more of them. I would love to see them in a slam final. I mean, we really deserve to have that Wimbledon final this year. I mean, I pray to the tennis gods we get Serena-Petra on grass, because that needs to happen. But, I just keep hoping for good things. Petra has had consistency in her coaching for a while. I think she's gotten used to the spotlight. She does have a PR person, and she's been doing a lot more media and publicity, and she's really funny. You see these great social media posts from her. She's got a great personality. Her English is so much more improved. I think when she won Wimbledon in 2011, English wasn't great. She wasn't quite this polished, pro that she is now, and she's a lot savvier. And I think that now would be great to have, the complete player that's dynamic on and off the court. And so I would just love to see her really get some more consistency. But, not to take away from Suarez-Navarro, I watched a little bit of her match against Schiavone last week in Antwerp. I mean, I don't think Carla gets as much credit as she should. She is a fantastic player. I mean, everyone drools about her one-handed backhand, but, I mean, goodness, she can just play amazing tennis. And so, it's great to see her continuing some good consistency as well. Obviously, losing today in a tough 3-set match to her doubles teammate, but still, a couple great back-to-back tournaments for Suarez-Navarro. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how she continues to do on the hard court chunk of the year that we're now in.
Yes, I completely agree. A really good result for her this week in Dubai, and I agree. I mean, she's had a couple of solid weeks here the last couple of weeks on tour, so that remains to be seen. But I agree with you. Certainly does not get the credit that she deserves. And Steph, one other match, looking at the draw here, this is one that you pointed out, and we talked about Pliskova and the fact that she's just on fire so far in 2015, but the match where she took out Ivanovic, that was a third-round match, and she won that in 3 sets, 6-2, 4-6, 6-4. Was this, in your opinion, just a matter of the fact that Pliskova is just playing so well, or did Ivanovic maybe contribute to that result, or was this just all Pliskova at this point?
Well, Anna revealed after she lost at the Australian Open that she had a broken toe, and so that really did affect her during her matches in Australia. And then, we hadn't seen her since then. She did easily beat Lisicki 11-3. And, of course, Pliskova is the one who took her out at the U.S. Open last year. I didn't see much of the match, but I do know that I believe that Anna was down a break in that third set and came back to level it. But I really do think it says more about Pliskova being a lot more in form. And I think because Anna has had an injury, that probably played a little bit of a factor in that. But, if you look at Anna, she's still, she had a very, very good year last year. But, she talked about how slams were her priority. Okay, so she lost early in Melbourne with this injury. Is she going to actually be able to show the consistency at slams that she wants? I don't know, but I do think this one was more about the fact that Pliskova is just a very tough opponent right now. I mean, Anna did come back from losing that first set, and then 6-4 in the third. Obviously, it was a very close match, but again, with someone like Anna who has been around for a number of years, has always been talked about. Because she was number one and won a slam, but she's just kind of drifted in and out, and it's great that she made it back to the top 5. I think she's just dropped down a little bit now because Wozniacki's up to 5, but Pliskova is just going to be pushing and pushing. I think she doesn't have that much to defend this year. I think it's exciting. I mean, you talk about Czech tennis. I mean, they've already got
wow.
Lucy's obviously been someone who's been top, top 30, now top 20, and really on the verge of top 10. And then you've got the Pliskova sisters. I mean, plus Strakova. Gosh, they really can just dominate Fed Cup for a really long time if they wanted to, which is great to see.
I completely agree. Right on. And good points there. Anything else that you want to talk about or cover in Dubai before we move on?
Well, we talked about all the upsets, and one player who is kind of trickling down the rankings is Radwanska, and we did talk about her last week and the fact she's not had a great start to the year. She did lose to Venus in Australia, then lost both her Fed Cup matches, and she did start Dubai by beating Garcia in 3 sets. And of course, Garcia's a tough opponent, but Aga lost 6-4, 6-2 to Muguruza, and she's down to 8 in the rankings. I actually hadn't realized. I mean, I'm sure I knew it, but sometimes you don't really notice things until your mind's ready to. And I thought, wow, she has dropped down quite a bit in the rankings again. Garbine's obviously a tough player, but I got to think that this is just really still not a great year for Agnieszka. I don't know if I believe she's playing Doha next week, but I'm just not sure if we're going to see much too soon from her. I really do hope that the Navratilova partnership is actually still going, and that Martin has been able to be with her. I don't really know. I haven't seen anything about that on Twitter, but I think it's just still like a little bit of a flag on Agnieszka, and whether we're going to see any kind of turnaround in Indian Wells and Miami. But those losses are going to start definitely. She'll be feeling that a little bit. Were you surprised at that loss to Muguruza?
I was. Maybe not the fact that it was an overall loss. The line score, yes. And, going back to the Martina Navratilova appointment, I really, side by side, I thought that the Lindsay Davenport, Madison Keys partnership would be more gradual, if you will, where Madison would they'd grow into that relationship, and Madison would have some nice results here or there. Certainly, I didn't see and envision a semifinal appearance at the Australian Open coming, and a very good fight there as well. I thought maybe we would see some more instant results with the Navratilova-Radwanska partnership, because Aga's already been there, if you will, and she knows the drill. I would have thought that the coaching, counseling, tutelage of Navratilova kind of perhaps providing some missing ingredients in Radwanska's game, given Martina being able to take a look at who she is, what the strengths are, what can we still continue to work on. But yeah, I really, as you mentioned, Steph, I hope that partnership sticks around. Let's give it some more time. And I'm quite surprised at Radwanska's start to 2015. Disappointing. I think that Martina's name is on this right now too, so I think there's going to be some fight coming up from Radwanska. She certainly has it in her. I just hope that they're able to correct what's not working at this point. I don't think they're that far off, but as you know, it's a fine line on tour, and a little blip or dip in a match, and you're out the door. So absolutely. Another tournament going on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just think, just to close that, I just think she's just one of those players. I don't put her in the same league as Kerber, who she did lose as well early and did drop out of the top 10 last week. But Radwanska is kind of getting into that zone now where, she doesn't want to follow the top 8 seeds for a slam, that's for sure, or any tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That just puts her against a whole different set of players, having to face the top players in an earlier round. So I just kind of have her in my slightly concerned, box right now. But we'll see. Plenty of time to turn things around, and hopefully Martina will be able to see her in the U.S. tournaments, coming up. Because I just don't know if Martina's traveling with her. That's the thing I'm not really sure about. But yes, watch this space, I guess.
No, good, great point there. And also, we talked, Dubai is absolutely stacked. There's another tournament going on in Rio de Janeiro. Sarah Irani, the number 11 player, is the number 1 seed. The number 8 seed, we go all the way down to 83 Chanel Scapers of South Africa. This is Sarah Irani's first quarterfinal of the year. Not much to really report on there so much. Everything's going on in Dubai, but Steph, last week, a couple of nice wins from veterans. Andrea Petkovic saved, I think it was either 8 or 9 points against the Belgian wild card, Van Uyentijk. Went on to win. We talked about Suarez Navarro not able to play that final, but with that win, Andrea Petkovic back into the top 10 since 2012. Very nice to see. And concurrent in Pattaya City, Daniela Hentikova gets the 7th career title in her career, taking out Ayla Tomljanovic in the final. Interesting, Petkovic gets a performance bye into Dubai, doesn't play a first round. Hentikova plays a final, wins it, and then is playing the next day on Monday in the first round. Let's just talk about some of the accomplishments, namely what Andrea Petkovic was able to do last week, and Daniela Hentikova for that matter as well.
Yeah, with Petkovic, she did save 8 match points, and I believe they were all on her opponent's serve. It was just a real, very difficult match for her to get through. You could just see her fighting within herself to try to, stay alive, and she did, force the third set in that match and go on to win it. But, we've talked about, she hadn't won a match until she got to Fed Cup, and everything's just been a bit of a struggle for her. But for her to crack the top 10 again after, and it's been nearly 3 years, she's been just plagued with injury after injury, and not little injuries. She's had some awful injuries that she's gone through, and I know she's talked about the struggles, the emotions and the mental struggle to try to understand why it kept happening to her, and she is a very, very likable player. She's got such personality, and it's great to see all that pay off for her to go back in the top 10. And yeah, you mentioned the performance bye. It's quite interesting. She and Suarez Navarro both got a performance bye in Dubai, but for whatever reason, Pattaya City wasn't, finalists weren't offered the same, and I don't know the rules around that. But, Hentikova, what is she, 31, I believe? She won a tough 3-set match against Tomljanovic, which is great. It's her 3rd win in Pattaya City. It's interesting, her 7 career titles include 3 in Pattaya City and 2 Indian Wells titles. Which is pretty amazing, and obviously she does well in Thailand. But for her to turn around and then play a tough opponent in Mona Bardal, who had obviously beaten Jeannie Bouchard in Antwerp, I mean, that was unbelievable turnaround. And I saw people on Twitter just, gushing with accolades for Daniela and, saying how they just don't feel bad for other athletes in sports to talk about, having to go across different time zone. I mean, this is a, back-to-back, wins for her in 2 different continents. I mean, she barely had 24 hours, and I know she said she got an hour of sleep before that match against Bardal, but unfortunately, I think, she kind of ran on adrenaline probably that first day against Mona, and then the next day she, of course, had to play Halep. And I did watch most of that match. You could just see Daniela just had nothing left in her legs, and, she was fighting as much as she could, but she did lose 2-love to Halep, which, we wouldn't even probably be surprised at that scoreline had it not been the next, follow-up to her winning a title. But, super huge props to Daniela. She's a player who's been around for a long time. She's hired, is it Roberto Sanchez? I forgot. Ricardo Sanchez, who's coached people like Jankovic before. She hired him during the off season. She obviously still is very committed to being a singles player. I was thrilled to see her win in Pattaya City, and I am really curious of why she wouldn't have got a performance buy as well in Dubai, because she really needed that day off. Any insight into that?
Agree.
I don't know the level of the tournament but you would think that it shouldn't matter at all what level the tournament is. They really should extend that to the finalists for both those tournaments.
I completely agree, and interestingly enough, just concurrent to that, Luca Vanni of the ATP, who had not won an ATP match in his career, got all the way to the final in South America and got a special exception, and we flew again, not only different continent. He went to play in France this week and had a first round match. So if anybody's deserving of performance buys, certainly we mentioned Petkovic and Suarez Navarro, but Daniela Hantuchova, let's give her one as well, and Luca Vanni on the ATP. Boy, that's a big ask. But yeah, I don't know why that. As you mentioned, the Antwerp tournament had, I don't know, maybe more prestige or something than Pattaya City, where the finalists there were able to get the performance by, and Hantuchova, who did yeoman's work to not only win the title but also win her first round match in Dubai as well. But that said, she has already a lot of fans, but won a heck of a lot more with that effort and fight, and winning an ATP match and 1 hour sleep for somebody who just took out Bouchard the previous week, absolutely. And Steph, you had mentioned a couple other things when we put the show together. Serena Williams, number 1 in the world now for 2 consecutive calendar years, 105 weeks altogether. You mentioned longest reign at number 1 since Steffi Graf did that for 4 years. And I think, a lot of us have, not a lot of tennis fans per se, but possibly a lot of sports fans may be taking Serena Williams for granted. This is one heck of an accomplishment, and I don't know, in my opinion, it's not being trumpeted nearly enough with respect to the world news and what Serena Williams has been able to accomplish. Your thoughts on, number 1, how hard it is to do this and accomplish, and number 2, maybe why we haven't heard more about it, because it's certainly deserved.
It's funny, all the years that Serena was, I guess it's funny, I'm not a casual tennis fan. I've been a massive tennis fan for years, so I've watched Serena's entire career. I know her ups and downs. I know the times where she was not a top-ranked player and she still won slams. But to a lot of casual fans, I think they just always assumed that Serena was number 1. But she really wasn't. She has been the year-end number 1. I think she's done it 4 times now. She first did it in 2002, then in 2009, and then in 2013 and 14. But for many, many years, when she was winning slams, she just wasn't always number 1. And I think for someone like me, I mean, I normally give a lot more weight to slams than anything else, including the number one ranking. I would say the same with Rafa Nadal. I don't really care if he's number one. He doesn't always play his best as number one. And, but with Serena this last time, I mean, with that win over Petra, and she knew that with that win over Petra, she would clinch number one again. And I actually was cleaning out my Twitter favorites yesterday, and I came across a picture that someone had tweeted of her when she knelt on the court and looked at the sky or the ceiling of the stadium. And, it was just in disbelief after all that she had been through with her pulmonary embolism and the blood clots and everything that she'd gone through, that she was back at number one. And through the last 2 years, obviously we have seen this absolutely amazing consistency from Serena. Last year, okay, it wasn't as great as half of 2012 and all of 2013, but I think because everyone's so focused on the slams, I think that the number one side of it kind of gets overshadowed, which fair enough. But I think now that it's been 105 weeks, that's the fourth highest of consecutive streak of all time. Steffi Graf leads the way with 186. I mean, that's during that reign she had in the late 80s and early 90s. But Serena's only 8 weeks away from overtaking another Chris Evert record, because Chris Evert had 113 consecutive weeks at number one. Number two is Martina with 156. So at the moment, Serena's consecutive weeks is just, she's closing in on number three for the most. She's already at number four for the total most weeks ever with 228. But, 2 solid years, you just don't really see that a lot. And I just do think that it's just kind of being lost because most people are talking about 18, 19, 20, 22, and they're not really talking about the records that she's also achieving in other areas. But the 2 straight years blows my mind. I mean, she did almost lose at the end of last year. It's definitely a lot closer now than it was, a year ago. But you're right. I do think it deserves a little bit more attention. But when I saw this announced this week, it does hit you when her name is just put up next to Graf all the time, because obviously Steffi achieved enormous records, but Serena is really closing in on a lot of those, so it's pretty incredible.
Completely agree, and would like to see more publicity and promotion with respect to the wonderful and very successful that's still going and continuing, and Serena's piling up the numbers not only at consecutive weeks, but also the majors. We'll see what she's able to accomplish for the rest of 2015, and again, the very special appearance of Serena Williams at Indian Wells in about 3 weeks' time. And last point of the night tonight, Steph, Victoria Azarenka has announced a new coach. What can you tell us about that?
Right. Well, tennis Twitter's been waiting to find out what happened after Azarenka's previous coach of 5 years, Sam Sumik, jumped ship and went to Jeannie Bouchard. And Azarenka hadn't really said anything one way or another about Sam leaving or anything at all, and but she did, some pictures leaked out a few days ago, and then she confirmed it that Wim Fissette is her new coach. Now, he coached Kim Clijsters in 2009 through 2011, when Kim obviously came back from having a child and soared and won a couple majors. And Wim apparently used to be just a hitting partner of Clijsters in her first part of her career. And then last year, Wim Fissette worked with Halep, and she kind of dropped him towards the end of last year and said that she would prefer to have a Romanian coach. And actually, Wim was supposed to be working with Madison Keys, and that was announced end of last year as well, but it just turned out that John Leach, Lindsay's husband, was able to kind of work with her, and so Wim didn't end up having a role with Madison. So he's obviously someone who has worked with top players, with slam winners like Clijsters, and so Azarenka has snapped him up. I did see a tweet that it was just for the week in Doha, but I haven't really seen any follow-up on that, whether it's just for right now they're just going to see how it goes, or if they have a full commitment with each other. But, that's exciting news. It'll be good to see, how that dynamic works. And there was Christopher Clary of the New York Times has been doing a great job writing about Azarenka. He's written 2 really great interviews with her in the last few months. And the one that was published this week, she did talk about what happened with Sumik, and it just sounded like he said to her, "Look, I feel like I need to let you go and let you grow," basically, and thought that having a fresh perspective on her career was a good thing. And I think that's true. I mean, I think that change is a good thing, and so hopefully with some new input on her team, Vika can kind of get back towards the top, because she does have a long climb. She is ranked around 50 right now. It's sometimes hard to believe that she really has fallen that much, but she really, she's had so many injuries last year. But I'm looking forward to that partnership. I can't say that I know a lot about Fissette. I didn't, 2009 to 11, I was living in New Zealand. My tennis watching was difficult. So when people cry about time differences, I think they literally have no idea how hard it can be when you live in Australasia. But obviously he's had great successes, so I hope that continues with Azarenka. But was that a partnership that surprised you at all?
You mentioned you set the table really nicely discussing Fissette, and I think Azarenka is looking at the best possible scenario at this point. I think what does surprise me is the fact that you mentioned looking at it for Doha, and obviously Doha's next week, as is Acapulco on the ladies tour. But I would have maybe I'm sure some things can be done in a week, but only this is for this next week, if as you mentioned that you had read. But what surprises me is not the selection, but possibly the time frame. And I would think that a portion of the season, and whether that be the hard courts, the clay courts, to work with somebody rather than just say a one-off, if you will, on a tournament. So I hope for both player and coach's sake that this could be a win-win, literally, and I think it will be. You mentioned Vika's floating around the 50s or so in the rankings. She knows what it takes to get back there. Obviously, her body needs to cooperate with her with respect to that. Showed some nice flashes, a nice win over Wozniacki at the Australian Open, obviously. She knows how to conduct business there. And you mentioned the players that Fissette has worked with, Clijsters and Halep. This is good. There's going to be some different wrinkles, if you will, for Azarenka with respect to whom he's worked with. And I think he's going to take a look at what Vika's doing, what she's not doing. I think we're going to see improved Victoria Azarenka. Hopefully the health will cooperate with her. But no, not surprised by the assignment, the appointment. Credit to both player and coach. I think they both got what they wanted here. I just hope that they give it obviously certainly longer than 1 week's time. They need more time than that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I believe that tweet was from a Belgian, I believe he's a former player, someone quite involved with the Belgian tennis, and so he's the one that first tweeted that it was a week, but then Vika didn't really allude to any time frame at all when she tweeted a picture of them. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I remember a couple of years ago, Wozniacki was kind of, I don't know if she was under pressure, but obviously felt the need to kind of throw in new coaches, and I think, in addition to her father, who's obviously been her coach for life, but, she did keep, there was like a little bit of a carousel of people coming in and out as her coach, and they were all quite short term. And I think Sloane Stephens has gone through the same thing where she's just, kind of works in chunks with people and then obviously decides for whatever reason they're not working out. And, there is something about routine and stability that a lot of players do better under, and I think because Vika did have Sam for 5 years, I think she obviously does like the consistency in her team. So one could only hope that was just some misinformation and that they do have a pretty good commitment. But definitely excited to see Victoria back next week in Doha. She is one of the players that didn't play in Dubai this week, and she's always an exciting player to be back in the mix now that she's not going to be a seeded player anywhere anytime soon. So Doha should be a great one next week.
Indeed. Look forward to, obviously, the Dubai semifinals and finals coming up here the next couple of days, as well as a couple of nice tournaments in Doha and Acapulco. And anything to add in closing, Steph, before we wrap this one up and get ready for next Thursday's show?
Nope, we've covered a lot as usual, and it was great to have Maria on to really, talk about the event in Surprise, and there's such a great calendar of Pro Circuit and ITF events, and it's nice now that we've been able to have the live scoring, the live streaming, because this is a fundamental part of the WTA Tour. They're not WTA Tour events, but it's all part of our tennis world, and so it is really nice to be able to talk to someone like Maria, who played in the college circuit and now is still trying to really push through on the WTA, and look forward to hopefully seeing her do well tomorrow in Surprise.
Correct. I will be there in person. Looking forward to seeing Maria Sanchez play. Abanda's going to play as well. Cici Bellis is in action tomorrow. So a 25,000 challenger in Surprise, Arizona, but some big names, some names that plenty of tennis fans are very familiar with, and the youngsters, the up-and-coming players. Looking forward to being able to see them firsthand tomorrow in Surprise, Arizona. Should be nice. Should be 82 degrees out there. The northwest part of Phoenix. So on behalf of Maria Sanchez, Stephanie Neppel, this is Pete Zebron saying good night, and we'll see you next Thursday on Passing Shots on the Pro 10 Radio Network. Good night.
That